Welcome back. This is
Hello.
now episode 4. I held up 4 fingers in case you're just listening. I'm Payton. This is my partner in
All
special
things spooky.
all things spooky, my paranormal investigator, my detective, I don't know what they're called, my police partner. I don't know.
Wow.
I know. I'm really smart, but
I'm Paige, by the
right.
way.
Oh, did I
You
say your
didn't
name?
actually say my name.
Well, that's Paige. So, this week, since last week, I did Betty and Barney Hill, which was super fun.
Very fun.
Um, I'm gonna go ahead and let her get started. I don't know the topic. I know a little bit, but go ahead. Oh,
All
real quick,
right.
before I'd like to say, because we were looking at our stats, thank
Oh my
you.
gosh, it's so
Yes,
exciting.
thank you to everyone that's liked our Facebook page, that has followed us on Instagram, because I keep getting new people that follow me on Instagram all the time. We looked at our downloads, we looked at everywhere where people are listening, and this is
It's
cool as
nuts.
hell.
It is
Yeah,
nuts.
it's really cool, and we just want to thank everybody that has listened and that's going to keep listening. We're really excited and really cool. We have a couple downloads in Mexico, which thank you, Adela. Woo!
Yay, Adela.
Yeah, and we also have one in France.
Which is I just blows my mind. I never
I know.
thought. And that was just after episode 1.
I know. So
I
shout out
mean,
shout out to that French listener. Thank you.
crazy. Thank you, Domes. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So excited.
All right. So let's get started, Paige. Go ahead.
Okay, so we are actually going to be talking about 4 different things today.
Dun dun dun.
They all kind of go together ish. You'll see whenever I tell you what they are. But the first one is going to be the Capuchin Monastery Catacombs.
You
And
said
no,
capuchin, and I was like, capuchin monkeys?
see, that's what I was getting ready to say. No, not the monkeys, because Ryan asked me the same thing. He goes,
Oh.
"So is it a bunch of stuffed monkeys?" I'm like, "It is not a bunch of stuffed monkeys, thank you." There's
And
a lot
those
of
who don't
things for
know,
this.
Ryan is her husband.
Yes. So,
Okay, so go ahead.
the Capuchin Monastery Catacombs.
Mm-hmm.
They're a bunch of monks, not monkeys. Not to be confused.
Okay, where's this
So,
at?
the catacombs are located in Palermo, Sicily, in southern Italy, which I would love to go. Honestly, I'd really love to go see this, to be honest, because this sounds really gnarly, to be honest.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna share pictures, and you're gonna share your screen and show me stuff.
Yes. So those of you that are going to be watching on YouTube, you'll be able to actually see in real time me showing the pictures. But those of you that are just listening, I will be sharing this stuff on Facebook and Instagram as well. So you can actually see what we're talking about because it's pretty cool. So the Capuchin friars were originally established in 1534. The catacombs were built as a cemetery for just the monks who inhabited the monastery. So that's how it all first started. But basically, the quote unquote cemetery was just a giant tank in the ground
Fun.
with a lid, essentially. Like they closed them in.
Oh
Yeah, so it was just this giant thing in the ground.
wait, wait. So are you Did they not really bury them properly? Did they just kind of throw them in there once they passed away?
That's kind of what it was. That's what the, like I said, cemetery was. This
Oh,
just giant tank in the ground.
that's rough.
Yes and no.
Oh.
Just wait. Just wait.
Oh. Oh.
So this was, started in 1534. So they were burying their monks in this tank for like 60 years ish. So by 1597, the tank had been filling up. So they decided to excavate the ground behind the main altar of the church and for a new part of the cemetery. So the ground had already had caves underneath of it where they were wanting to dig. So they kind of used them to their advantage and they created a few different chambers for this new burial site. They were going to move the bodies in the tank to the new part of the cemetery,
Mm-hmm.
but when they opened the tank, they found that 45 of the bodies were naturally mummified and perfectly preserved.
Oh.
Yeah. How
What
freaky would that be?
does your research explain why they were mummified?
I'm gonna get into that.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I'm
I
getting ahead of
know
myself.
you're getting ahead of yourself there.
Oh, I just spilled my coffee.
Don't do that.
Okay, go ahead.
So they were so well mummified and well preserved that they were actually able to recognize some of the faces of the monks that had been buried.
Oh.
Like that well preserved. They were not decomposed pretty much at all. The Capuchins thought that this was an act of God, and they decided to display the bodies as relics and propped them up or hung them in nooks in the walls of the new cemetery. I know. I know. So
Wow.
they were putting them in the first corridor in the new part of the cemetery. So the monks would come and pray with their mummified bodies. And the first body that had been displayed in there was that of, I'm going to really apologize if I screw this up, that of Fra Silvestro da Gubbio.
That sounds good.
Is how
You
you pronounce
tried.
it.
You tried.
Yeah, I did. So he was
And
displayed in,
if anybody knows, correct us.
yes, please. So he was displayed in a simple brown robe and a headdress.
Mhm.
In his arms is a sign to commemorate the new cemetery. And this was on October 16th, 1599. That's when they finally finished it. It was a couple years after they started. And then more and more lay people were buried this way. So they completely got rid of the original way of just putting them into a tank
Uh-huh.
underground. And then they just continued with the new cemetery.
You know, it'd be really, really messed up if they just continued that, like every 60 years, unbury the tank and pull out the mummies. That'd be, that'd be,
No,
that'd be a
no,
little, rough.
they found a new way
They
to
found a
do
better
it.
way.
They
Yes.
did.
That's actually, this is crazy. I'm surprised I don't even know about that.
I
Didn't
hadn't
know
even
about
heard
this
of it
at all.
either.
No.
So by 1783, so a couple hundred years later, they ended up having to expand the catacombs, which was to be expected. A couple hundred years of burying people there. So there were around 2,000 bodies buried here up to the 19th century.
Damn.
I know. So the people who were privileged enough to be buried here, they were mostly the wealthy people of Palermo and rich celebrities because you kind of had to have some money to make a donation. They made very generous donations to afford the friars' mummification process and to prepare their own personal niche um, in the cemetery. And they sometimes had to change their clothes as upkeep. So this also helped with that, all their money that they donated.
Interesting.
So can you imagine having that job?
To change the mummy's
To
clothes.
change the mummy's clothes. No.
Can I say something a little messed up real
Sure.
quick?
That's what this is for.
Do you ever wonder what that smells like? Like a mummy?
I mean,
Because I'm sure it's some sort of. Anybody that has smelled a mummy, please let me know.
I also think it depends on how, maybe it depends on how they're mummified, because I'm going to get into 3 different processes that they used for mummification.
Yeah, because of course I don't know anything about mummies, but I know there is a way of. I don't necessarily want to say decomposing, but there is a process where actually, depending on the situation where the body is in, is actually gets covered in like a candle wax almost.
Yeah.
And that kind of preserves the body and it doesn't have much of a smell. So, because there is a story
From all of your experience with mummies?
yes, from all of my experience with mammies,
with mammies.
with mammies. But yeah, I mean, I know there's that process, and I know that that particular one, again, depending on how the body is, it doesn't have much of a smell. So I'm just curious. I know that sounds weird, but this is where my brain is, people.
This is immediately where your brain goes.
Yeah. Because I'm like, if I have to change a mummy's clothes, am I gonna have to be am I gonna have to have a mask on? Well, you should
Mask up.
anyway. Well, you should anyway, but I mean, yeah.
Well, anyway, so the mummification was a way to preserve their status and dignity for the wealthy people.
Mm-hmm.
The bodies, they were either hanging in nooks in the walls or they had them encased in glass cases. Some of the other pictures that I've seen, they were, and in some of the nooks, they were either standing up or they were supine. They were on their backs. So no matter what, though, there were nooks and crannies in the walls, and that's where all the bodies were. So the cemetery officially closed in 1880, and after it closed, the monastery made 2 more exceptions to bury people in the catacombs. So no, they weren't accepting any more, up until 1880, but just 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
So the first was in 1911, the body of Giovanni Paterniti. Paternity? No, it's not paternity.
It's not
Sorry.
paternity.
It's paternity, I think. Something along those lines. So he was the vice consul of the United States. I didn't look into that guy, but yeah, that's what they listed him as.
Okay, Giovanni.
The second and last was in 1920. This is sad. It was the body of 2-year-old Rosalia Lombardo. She died of pneumonia. She is kept in a small chapel and encased in a glass-covered coffin. She is known today as the world's most beautiful mummy. Many of the bodies are now protected by wire cages because people suck and are literally taking bones off some of the bodies.
Oh my god.
Because people are awful.
Wait, they mummified the baby?
They mummified the baby. That was their last exception. I actually have a picture of her as well.
Oh yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd love to see.
I'm
that
sorry,
baby.
that sounds fucked. I'm so sorry.
No, but she's like, I mean, she's really well done. Her face just looks a little leathery, and her hair is still intact. It's like curled and there's a bow in it. She's in this little party dress.
Oh.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking. But she's known as the world's most beautiful mummy because, first of all, she was so well done. Second of all, she's just in this cute little stuff.
Wow, Paige, you just really brought down the party here.
Yeah, I did.
You're talking about dead monks, and then you start talking about baby.
Well, I mean, there was all kinds of people, all kinds of different type of people buried here in this way. So there's a lot of different corridors that were dedicated to different types of people. And when I say that, here's some of them. There were some for friars, priests, women, young virgin women, men, children, and one for families. So like the whole family can be together in a chamber. There's also the corridor of professionals. So the people that could be buried here were doctors, lawyers, painters, officers, and soldiers, just to name a few. So the professional ones, most of them are actually buried in their professional garb. So you're going to see soldiers in their uniforms buried in there. Doctors in their the monks and priests in their normal clothing that they would wear, that kind of stuff. Yeah, super interesting. Did you hear that?
Yeah. Hold for sound.
So there was 3 different types of mummification processes that the monks used. And I don't know that you could actually pick because they had their favorite method. So the first one, which again was their favorite, was the natural mummification process. This is how the original 45 bodies that they had found, this is how they were mummified.
Yeah.
So it's a process that's based on dehydration, which you remove the fluids present in the tissues, and it stops the growth of bacteria and consequently also the process of decay of the body. So shortly after death, the bodies were taken to a preparation room called, and I'm going to butcher this, the colatoio, maybe? This room had drier air and a lower humidity. Wow, goodness. And a lower humidity. And then the organs were removed and replaced with straw or bay leaves in order to accelerate the dehydration process. So they were just looking to completely rid the body of any kind of fluids and moisture. Exactly. So then the body was then placed flat on their backs on grids made of terracotta tubes so their body could drain of fluids completely. I'm not sure how long this process took. It couldn't have been like a super fast process, but I mean, they stuffed them with hay and bay leaves, so that kind of helped, I guess.
Interesting choice, bay leaves.
Bay leaves, yeah.
Maybe that's all they had. I don't know. I've never been to Italy.
I haven't either. So then the room was shut up for close to a year after this process.
Oh.
So I'm not sure exactly how long it takes for the body to completely rid itself of the fluids, but no matter what, they closed the room up for like a year to completely finish the process. So then once they opened the room up and the body was exposed to air, they washed the body with vinegar and then dressed it in the clothes that they had chosen or the family had chosen before death, and then put them in their own personal niche. So this basically turned their skin to leather, and then the body was stiff. So that was the natural mummification process. That's what they used almost all the time. That was their kind of preferred method. So the second method is the arsenic bath. It's yeah.
Oh.
So during epidemics, I mean, this one's pretty self-explanatory. They literally bathed the bodies in arsenic. I'm assuming it's to, rid the body of all the crap that they was exposed to, because like I said, they did it during epidemics. So
that was I guess that was decontaminating the body.
I guess.
Interesting.
So what this does...
Interesting choice, arsenic.
Arsenic, I know, right?
It's crazy. Not rubbing alcohol? No.
No, arsenic. I mean,
crazy.
It's a poison. Yeah.
Right.
So what this did is it left the bodies surprisingly intact. Kind of even today, they're pretty intact, apparently, the ones that were bathed in arsenic. So this is how they mummified the body of Antonio Prestigiacomo.
Mm-hmm.
So I read somewhere, and I think this was actually on the Catacombs website, because you can go visit this place. I know. I would love to go to Italy for multiple reasons. This is one of them.
Yeah, Italy is definitely my bucket list kind of
Absolutely.
Place. But now this gives me another reason to go to Italy.
I know. So I think this was on the website that I read this. This dude apparently even today has a quote unquote rose-colored face. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, the arsenic bath really did its work, apparently. So then the last method is the artificial mummification, which is basically present-day embalming.
Okay.
So this method was only used occasionally. It's achieved by injecting chemicals into the body. They found, I'm assuming, I think it was like 1940s, 50s, something like that. Somebody found the handwritten notes of Dr. Alfredo Salafia, which I love the name Alfredo. It's so Italian.
Right.
So they found his handwritten notes on his embalming process, which he was the one that actually embalmed little Rosalio Lombardo. So his formula consisted of formalin, zinc salts, alcohol, salicylic acid, and glycerin. So it's modern day embalming is basically what that was. But they didn't use that very often. So yeah, that's kind of what I got on the Capuchin Monastery Catacombs.
Do you have pictures?
I have pictures. Now, there's a ton of, honestly, this is the one that I found the most pictures of.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommend, if you're into this kind of weird stuff, looking at pictures of this, because there are tons. I just picked a few to show you.
Yeah, because
So
if you have If you have mummies in every corner, I'm sure
I
there's
mean,
a lot. Yeah.
in every nook and cranny. So here is picture number 1 that I found.
Oh
So
wow.
they've got the railing up, obviously, so people can stay away and not be shitbags and steal
Yeah.
bones. But
God,
a lot of
people
them,
fucking suck.
their people are awful a lot of times. So a lot of them have been kind of reduced to just skeletons now. But I mean, even some of them,
Yeah.
like even like this one here, I mean,
I was
that's
saying,
a hand.
I still see his hand. Yeah.
That is a hand. That is not just a skeleton hand, you
Yeah.
know? So, I mean, this is so you can see up here, this is where they've got them laying flat. And then everybody else is pretty much in their own little nooks here. So that was picture number 1 I've got. Picture
It's
number
so
2.
interesting that they're standing.
Oh, this one's kind of small. So just another picture. I mean, some of them you can kind of see in their different clothes and stuff. I think this one, oh no, that's not in a glass case,
I would
but
say, well, that one up
these are some of
top,
the glass cases though.
well, that one up top, I can definitely see that it's still mummified a little bit because I can still see the face.
Yeah. So I thought that one was pretty cool. And then this one, that just shows, I mean, seriously, how well preserved
His little
his,
mustache.
I know. Still has got his little mustache and his guy's hair. Yeah, I mean, it's nuts how well they did this. And then last one is little Rosalia Lombardo.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So there is another picture of her where it's more on the camera is more up, so it's you see more of her, but I thought this one really kind of captured the sleeping baby look,
Wow.
you know.
I'll say anyone that's just listening, I do apologize for this part, but look these pictures up. Look them up.
And the ones that I just showed, I will share on Facebook as
Yes.
well. That way you can see which ones we are talking about
Yes.
because
And we'll share them
it's
on
kind of nuts.
yeah, we'll share them on Instagram, and anybody who's listening, I recommend you to watch the video as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
She
I
is
mean,
so well preserved.
I know. So, and her hair, her face just is kind of like leathery looking, but I think her eyelashes are still even intact.
Really?
I mean, look at it. Yeah,
That's crazy. She does
crazy.
look beautiful.
Yeah, the little bow in her hair. I mean, her hair.
I know, and her
You can
hair
see
is
her
still
hair is
it's all
curled.
there. Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. But yeah, so that's why she is called the most beautiful mummy. So
It's crazy.
yeah. So that was what I have for the Capuchin Monastery catacombs. So then the second one I'm going to be talking about is the hanging coffins in the Philippines. So this one's kind
Yes.
of interesting. I mean, they're all interesting, but
Yeah.
this one's kind of cool because of how they do it. So I'm going to butcher the name of this tribe that does it, but I'm going to try. So this all centers around the indigenous Igorot. It ends in a T. I feel like it might be Igorot. I don't know. Tribe living in Sagada, Luzon Islands in the Philippines. It's said that their unique funeral practice dates back 2,000 years, but honestly, there's no real evidence that supports that
Yeah.
because they've dated some of the coffins that are up there and they don't actually go back that far, they don't think. So they are quite literally hanging coffins high in the cliffs. So to receive this honor, though, you've got to meet some criteria. You must be a full-blooded Igorot.
Okay, well that makes sense. I get that.
Sure. You have to have been married at some point.
Rude.
Yeah. And you also have to be a grandparent.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, so then you have to be like an elder of the tribe,
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
I get it.
And the last criteria is you have to have died of natural causes. So I guess
Okay.
if you were murdered, you couldn't be.
I would say that would be rude.
That would be kind of rude. I mean, so I guess no murders or accidents.
That was interesting.
I don't know. But yeah, I thought that was kind of a interesting little criteria to be buried up there. Criteria. So it all starts with the elderly carving their own coffins out of a single log.
Oh.
So my first thought was like, okay, but they have to die of natural causes, which means they have to die of old age, of some type of sickness. But then I was like, but wait a second, they can be like, well, I've hit 60. Might as well start carving. You know what I mean?
Right. Like, at what age do you start carving your coffin?
I don't know. I have no idea. It never actually says. It just says it starts with the elderly carving their own coffins.
I'm sorry, I'm just imagining, like, at your 65th birthday, like, you know, they have the cake, everyone's singing happy birthday to you, like,
and then they bring your log.
yeah, here's your present, Grandma. Tonk on the table. It's time.
I know. Well, it says if they are too weak or sick to do it themselves, a family member.
What?
So if
rude.
I know. This is a big honor, though. So if they're too weak or sick to do it themselves, though, a family member will actually do it for them. So, but I mean, it's a log. It's not a big, big piece of wood that they're carving this out of. It's literally out of a single log. So they're just hacking away and making a big hole in this log for them to be in. So, yeah. So they're not very big, obviously. So what happens then after they die, they are wrapped in blankets and tied with rattan leaves. Is that how you say that? Rattan? Rattan?
I think it's
I don't think that's it. Is it rattan?
I don't know.
Rattan.
Let's look at the pronunciation on Google.
I never actually looked at the pronunciation before I did this. I should have, but I didn't. Here we are.
Rattan. Yeah, rattan. Hold on. Rattan. Yeah.
Rattan. Okay,
Thank you, Google.
Thank you, Google. With rattan leaves. So after this, a procession of mourners, they carry the body up a cliff and during this, everybody's kind of trying to touch the body, either try to touch it or carry it themselves. Like people are kind of fighting over getting a hold of the dead body.
Do they ever spill Grandma over the cliffs from fighting?
I don't know. I don't think they're like come to blows. but everybody's trying to squeeze in. I mean, I've never been to one.
That's true. I don't think anyone throws hands, but
no, but everybody's trying to touch the dead body because they said it was good luck to be smeared with the blood of the deceased because it would allow them to possess the skill of the deceased person.
Well, I mean, I guess that does make sense in some tribes to where. Oh, okay. I understand that.
Yeah. So that's the reason that they're trying to get a hand on the deceased.
Okay.
So then once they reach the, for lack of a better word, burial site, they would then put the body in the coffin. So at this point, once they get up there, that's when they put the body in the coffin. The thing is, it's pretty much rigor mortis is set in at this point. So, because I also read somewhere that you know where I'm getting with this. Oh. So I also read somewhere that kind of the process of like the funeral is they set the person in a chair in their home with the door open for like a couple days even sometimes, and basically for mourners to come pay their respects.
That's all fine and dandy, but in a chair.
I read that in one of the places that I was researching. So when they get up to the burial site, that's when they put the body in the coffin. Well, the coffins were only typically around 3 foot long. Not everybody's 3 foot tall.
Oh no, Grandma.
Yeah. So they had to be forced into the log, which sometimes meant breaking bones and breaking rigor mortis.
Yeah.
So there was some crunching sounds, which is
Yeah.
not makes me uncomfortable. But what they would do, again, since it was only 3 foot long, typically, obviously there were different lengths, but typically around 3 foot long, is they would put them in there in the fetal position. This also represented, first of all, being able to fit in the coffin, but it also represented them leaving the world as they came into the world in the fetal position.
Okay, that's actually what my next question was going to be. Is going to be like, oh,
Yes,
like kind of like a rebirth into a new realm, kind of.
exactly. Yeah. So
Gotcha.
that's
Okay.
kind of what they were
Okay.
representing.
Well, that's kind of sweet in a way, but it does
It
suck that
is.
you have to crunch grandma into that.
I know. I know that would be horrifying.
That would be. I'd be like, I'm so
So
sorry.
I'm sorry, Grandma. Oh God, we shouldn't be laughing.
Sorry.
Uh,
I just imagine. I'm sorry. I'm imagining it in my head, and I'm like, oh, no thanks.
yeah. Well, I don't like crepitus to begin with.
Yeah.
So the
No.
sound of an actual bone breaking. Now I've never heard crepitus being like broke.
Mm-hmm.
For all intents and purposes, I guess you call it broke, but I would imagine it can't be too
It's
far away from crepitus.
well, it can't be pleasant.
No,
Like it's definitely not like a. It's not an ASMR like. Ah. It's definitely not.
no, no.
Oh goodness.
So once they have the deceased in the coffin, they would then tie or nail the coffin to the side of the cliff. So the deceased also had a choice to be placed in the Lumlang burial cave as well. I believe it was up in the cliffs too, because I think I have a picture of what that could be. Because I've only got 2 pictures of this one that I'll show at the end of this. So there's a couple thoughts as to why they hung the coffins on the cliffs instead of burying them. The first was more of a spiritual reason. So they thought by hanging them high enough, they'd be closer to their ancestors. Um, so I mean that could definitely be. But the second is a little bit more of a practical reason, which I can also see as well, because they wouldn't decompose as quickly as if they were underground, with the elements, rain and, and also animals. The animals wouldn't get to them to help with that process. So, and they were safe from headhunters. And I looked up headhunters is exactly what you think it is, exactly what it sounds like. People who would literally exhume a body and take the head.
Why? What is the reason for this?
I just think it goes back to people being dicks.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it had some kind of weird black market type of thing. But I mean, that's kind of
Oh,
the
do you think they'd shrink them?
could be.
And this is like what time period, or is this something that continues going on?
Oh no, it's not
Still,
practiced as much
still.
today.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's still, yeah, it just
Okay.
dates back a while, but it's still done. And like I said, not as often, but still done.
Okay.
So again, because people are awful,
Yeah.
some
People
people
suck.
have scaled the cliffs to steal bones out of the coffins.
I think there's an easier way to get bones.
I think so as well. And it's not to scale a damn cliff.
Now, don't get me wrong, I love creepy shit, and I do have a porcupine skull. I'm not saying that I'm not above having bones as a possession, but I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. I
And
wouldn't do
see,
that.
I was telling Ryan too when I was researching this. I'm like, people that desecrate a burial site or someone's coffin and does that, that's just so disrespectful.
Yeah, you're a piece of
And
shit.
yeah, so I mean, it's just an awful thing to do. And and he actually brought up the point. Well, he goes, well, what about people who go into tombs, like digging up the Egyptian tombs and things like that? I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
However, there is a slight difference because they are trying to preserve everything when they go into the
Yes,
tombs.
yes and no. I will say that's something that we can get into. We can talk about King Tut's curse. That's a
That could
fun
be a fun
one.
one.
That's a fun one. I do think it's bullshit though, but that's okay. Um, we'll talk about it later. But I mean, before King Tut was discovered, and I believe it was in late 1800s, up to 1920-ish. I don't exactly
I don't
remember,
remember.
but it's around that time. Before that, that was the biggest discovery of the time of the
Oh
20.
yeah.
I think it was like, oh, I think it was in like the 1920s, but it was like the biggest discovery
Oh
in the
yeah.
20th century. Like it was bananas.
Hmm.
But before that, they had there was a ton of other like high priestess priests. I think I'm not sure, but a lot of other like nobility, their tombs had gotten raided, like
Yeah, which is awful.
millions of years, hundreds of years prior. Like that, it's not new
No.
because unfortunately with Egyptians back when they used to actually do this, they would put all of their worldly possessions in the tomb
Hmm.
with them because they believed that in the afterlife they would still have all those possessions, and they would
Hmm.
even bury servants in there with them. I don't
Oh,
know. Yeah, I don't know if they were still alive when
I
they
mean,
sealed them up in the tomb.
yeah.
But they had like musical instruments, gold, chariots, like all sorts of stuff. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's
People
just yeah,
looted that, and again,
yeah,
that just that there goes back to people being awful. But as
yeah.
far as like nowadays, they're trying to preserve as much as possible
Yes,
and
I
just
will.
trying to,
Yeah, I mean they do
research basically.
anytime that they do that now, and even I think King Tut is still he's preserved. I don't know exactly where his body is, but he is still preserved and all that good stuff. And I understand like that certain stuff. I understand to a degree because they've done a lot of research on it, and
Oh
that
my gosh,
helps
so much
right,
stuff is
and that
found.
helps us understand their culture, their
Hmm.
beliefs, their customs, all that good stuff. And
And
it's
it's
so
so different
it is.
from scaling a cliff
And
and
taking someone's
stealing
head.
bones.
Right. So
Yeah.
shitbags. Continue.
Right. So to end this one with the hanging coffins, it's thought that the practice had originated in China because there are a couple tribes in southern China that actually do this, and they are the Bo and the Guyu, I think is how you pronounce it.
I think that sounds
So
right.
yeah, it's Guyue. So I'm assuming it's Guyu.
Okay. Oh,
If
that.
somebody speaks Chinese and knows about them,
Oh yeah,
please correct us.
if you speak Mandarin, please.
So, some of these particular coffins that are from these tribes actually can be dated back to the Zhou dynasty, which is a long time ago.
Yeah.
Long, long time ago.
So this isn't exactly a new custom.
It is not. So the Bo people, so the reason that the Bo people did this, they lived a really hard life. So they wanted peace and quiet in the afterlife. So that's why they hung their coffins on a cliff. Isn't that
So
just
precious.
I
That's so
know.
sweet and so considerate.
It is. I know, and it just breaks your heart because it's like they just want peace and quiet in the afterlife. So hang them up high, and they'll get some peace and quiet finally.
Oh, that broke my heart.
I know. So here's a couple. Like I said, I only have a couple pictures from these. So the first one, this is the one that you see most of the time.
Yes,
So I
I,
mean,
I
they're up there.
I believe I've seen this exact picture. Wait, is that some of their names?
I'm not sure. Maybe. But it was also kind of speculated how they actually did this because, I mean, there's no ledge really
No.
per se. And they're kind of all hung together almost, it looks like. because you can kind of see that they're tied together a little bit. So,
And there's a chair hanging off one of them.
no, it's for a visitor. You don't know.
I hate you.
Yeah, it's for extreme visitors. So this is the second picture that I have, and this is the one that I was talking about, that cave. So you can kind of see that it's more in there, and these are definitely older ones, I'm gonna assume, at least.
Yeah, those don't even look like wood anymore.
Yeah,
That literally looks almost like rock.
But you can definitely tell they were carved out of logs, though, because you still see at the end. Yeah, they're circular, and you still see at the end, like, obviously, you know, it's not close enough to see all the rings, but I mean, that's clearly out of a log.
Yeah.
And they are so small.
They look kind of petrified is, I think, the word that I'm looking for.
Oh, you know what? They could be.
Yeah, that's what kind of what they look like.
All right, so that's what I have on the hanging coffins in the Philippines. My third topic is so badass. It's crazy. It's super crazy. And this is another place that I would love to be able to witness for myself. So it is the Sedlec Ossuary, aka the Bone Church.
Yeah.
So this is a Gothic style church located in Sedlec in the suburbs of Kutna-Hora in the Czech Republic. It started out as just a cemetery back in 1278. This is kind of crazy. The King of Bohemia sent the monk Henry to Jerusalem. He took a jar of dirt. You know, I've got a jar of dirt. So he took a jar of dirt to the place where Jesus was crucified at Golgotha. I don't remember how to pronounce that.
So Johnny Depp took dirt to Jesus's resting place.
No, to where he was crucified, not his resting place.
Oh, to where Jesus was murdered.
Yes. So took it there, and I guess with it being there, it was blessed, so it was holy soil. So when he brought it back to Sedlec, he sprinkled the dirt over the cemetery. So word got out, and because of this, everybody wanted to be buried there.
Of course.
So some people even went as far as bringing their dead and buried family members to be reburied in this cemetery.
Oh.
Yeah. Don't know that I would have done that. So the plague soon hit after the cemetery, and then the cemetery had filled up pretty quickly. So by 1400, they had built a church and then in the basement of the church, they made an ossuary. So for anybody who doesn't know what that is, because I definitely did not, an ossuary is a container or room in which the bones of dead people are placed. So, I mean, it's a catacomb of sorts. So after 1511, the person who was tasked with exhuming the skeletons and putting them in the chapel was a half-blind monk.
That's rude.
Poor guy. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that he brought all of them, but I mean, he was the one being like, hey, go get those bodies and put them in the ossuary.
This may be insensitive, but does it say how he was half blind? Is it like one eye he couldn't see?
No, and just half blind.
Or just like, oh, he got a bunch of cataracts?
Don't know.
Interesting. Okay.
That's left up to interpretation.
I think half blind means one eye can see. So dumb. Okay, continue.
The other one was 2020.
So I'm only half blind because I got the one eye that works. The one eye just doesn't.
Anyway, the thing is, the reason why I don't think he would have moved all of the people,
because he can't see. He's only got one eye.
Because it contained the bones of approximately 40,000 to 70,000 people.
Oh my god.
That's why I'm thinking maybe he didn't do it all by himself.
That's a lot of work.
That is a lot of work for somebody who can see fully. I mean, yeah. So that was, like I said, that was like 1511 is when they started moving bodies to the ossuary. So I don't know how they were in there at the time, but by 1870, there was a wood carver by the name of František Rint who was asked to decorate the chapel with all the bones in the ossuary.
Mm.
So thus, this is where the name the Bone Church came from.
Imagine getting like contracted for that job.
Oh my gosh. He did. Oh gosh, he did a fantastic
He did
job.
amazing work, first of all.
Crazy.
But imagine someone coming up to and be like, "Hey, so we want to hire you for this job. Okay, what is it? We need you to put bones everywhere.
Just literally everywhere.
Excuse
Put
me?
them on the ceiling.
Right.
Make things out of bones.
Make
I mean, whatever you want to do.
chandeliers, chairs. We need furniture too. Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
crazy.
And that is exactly what he did. So what he did was he disinfected and bleached every single bone that he decorated with. That's, first of all, again, there was 40 to 70,000 people that was known to be buried in the cemetery and ossuary. So he bleached every single one, and that was basically for continuity with the decorations. I get it. I'm very glad we're the same person. So
You gotta have everything matching. Hello.
yeah, I know. So there are bones lining the walls, ceiling, floor, and incorporated in the decor of the church.
Yes.
There's a few different notable pieces that he did. The first is the Schwarzenberg coat of arms. So the Schwarzenberg family, I guess, was the people who owned the church at the time. So they literally have their coat of arms made out of bones.
That's
How
fucking
badass
sick.
was that? I mean,
I know.
I want our coat of arms to be made
I
of
know.
bones.
We have a lion. That's not as badass.
It's because we're Gryffindors.
That's true.
Anyway, so it's pretty big. I'm assuming from the pictures. I mean, and I'm gonna show that's one of the pictures I'm gonna show. It seems to be pretty big on there. So he also did a chandelier, which is fantastic.
Yes, seen that, and that
so,
is.
fun
I want
fact
that in my living room.
I know. Fun fact of the chandelier, though, it has at least one of every single bone in the human body.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he didn't just make it out of femurs. He had at least one of every bone.
That's
so my
bananas.
First thought was, so like even the inner ear bones, like the little bitty tiny ones, was he able to find them?
I'm thinking of like phalanges and all sorts of stuff.
I mean, those would be easier to find than the
ear bones.
inner ear bones.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's just the weird place my mind goes. So
because we're fucked.
We're a little off. So he even, which I would totally do this too. This is just funny to me. He even signed his name in bones on one of the walls.
Oh, so absolutely, I would.
As every artist does, and have their signature in the piece of thing that they do.
Right, in the bottom right-hand corner of the canvas.
He signed his name in bones with the year 1870 on one of the walls.
That's sick.
Yep. And if you feel so inclined to make a donation to the church, you can do so. You can do so by putting some coins in a skull.
Oh my god, we have to go. I was actually getting ready. Wait, so if I make a donation to this church, they're going to carve my name in bone and put me in the church?
No, not if you just make a donation. No, he did it.
He's the architect.
Yes. So he's going to live off in infamy in that church because he did that.
That's true.
So yeah. So here's a couple pictures. Seriously, it's gnarly.
Well, and not to mention, hey, that's one of the places that we can go when we finally go to Europe on our pilgrimage of when we find out where all we're from.
Look at that.
God,
I mean, seriously, in this picture, if you're just listening, so there's bones, there's skulls hung from the ceiling like ribbons. Like he strung skulls and I'm going to
Imagine,
assume some kind of arm bones in a pattern and hung it from the ceiling like you would see in, I don't
I
know, a
think,
wedding or something,
I think those
like
are
ribbons.
femurs. Those are femurs.
It's they're kind of short to be femurs though. I'm thinking like the upper arm bones, like a humerus or something.
Well, the ones on the left are actually pretty long.
Yeah, those do seem a little
I
longer.
think those are femurs.
Well,
Imagine Christmas, but dead.
like popcorn strings.
Yeah.
But with skulls.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is just so cool looking.
It is. That's how I want to
So
decorate
that
my
was
home.
number 1. Number 2, this is just another part. So
Is that
even
wait, is that a
that's
goblet he made? Or is that a flower
well,
pot?
I mean, I guess it's dealer's choice, but it's a huge one. Yeah, I don't think they drink out of that. But even here, this one I picked because this shows Jesus on the cross and he's surrounded in bones. Surrounded with bones. I mean, they're lining the walls here. I think in every corner, that is cool.
Yeah, well, first of all, that altar where they have Jesus's body, that's gorgeous. The way that
beautiful.
they have that in front of the window, but
yeah.
So beautiful.
Then another part is just, I mean, I think this is looking the opposite way from the picture that I just showed. So it shows your pelvic bone, the pelvic bones up here on top of the line of skulls and stuff. I mean,
and it's the skull, and then again, I think I think they're femurs because look at how big the end of it is.
Yeah. Well,
so I think
yeah, but look at here though. Here where they're just literally long bones. Yeah, look how those are definitely femurs. I don't think these are.
I think they're femurs.
If somebody knows more than us, would like to look at the picture and tell us.
Especially like, okay, like on the left hand side, there are big, like I don't know the exact term for it, like the nodules where it goes into the socket. Like that's a femur.
The ball and socket. Yeah, these are. Yeah. I still don't think these are.
No, they're femurs. You don't know what you're talking about. But it kind of looks like skull and crossbones all the way down the wall.
Oh, yeah. Just on top of each other.
Yeah.
The dude did a fantastic job. So here's the coat of arms. Oh, is that not the coolest thing you've ever seen? Because they've got these. These are definitely
speechless.
Seriously, these have got to be the bones of like your hand and your feet.
And there's a spine right in the middle.
That's
oh my god.
Yeah.
Can my bones be put here? Are they still taking donations in bones?
I don't know. Yeah. But I mean that looks huge, right? Because then behind the coat of arms is just a mountain
of skulls.
And bones in between.
I got the chills.
I know. Okay, and then here's the chandelier. Yes. That's the best picture I could find of the chandelier because the other ones are kind of weird. But yeah, so there's the coccyx.
What are those? Are those the one things that are hanging? What are those?
They look like jaws to me. Like a jawbone. Like
the maxilla?
Yes. And Peyton's pointing to her chin and jaw as she's
my jaw.
That.
Yeah.
And then here's a spine.
No, that's the mandible. Maxilla is the top one. Okay.
Oh, sure. There's your spine. That's, yeah. Oh I mean, it's pretty gnarly. So that's what I've got on the Bone Church. So my last topic that I'm covering is the Paris Catacombs. This is the big one. This is the one that everybody knows about. And I mean, I would love to go and see this. This would be so cool to see. Also, it's like 57 degrees year round down in the catacombs.
So perfect to set up shop. Perfect to set up shop and live, you know.
Right, exactly. So In the late 1700s, Paris was having some public health issues because of their cemeteries. And that's putting it nicely.
Yeah.
Because if you look at their website, that's kind of what they said. They don't go into it. So I found some other sites that told me what was happening. So Paris was such a thriving city at the time. There was literally just a ton of people living there and dying there, consequently.
Wait,
So
what time was this?
this was in the 1700s.
Okay.
By 1780, cemeteries were overflowing with bodies and graves were overstuffed to the point where sometimes with a rain, some bodies were uncovered and they'd have to like rebury the bodies. So the smell of rotting flesh emanated from the cemeteries because they were so overstuffed. And, you know, with the elements, bodies were popping up and, yeah, not smelling great.
Popping out of the ground like daisies.
Oh, we shouldn't be allowed in public.
I'm sorry.
So the smell was horrendous and it was really causing problems for the people in town. Like, you know, the people that sold food and actually perfume vendors was having a really hard time during this.
Yeah.
So in the year 1780, there was a ton of rain in a very short period of time, which is never a good thing for an overflowing cemetery.
No.
What this did was it caused the wall for the largest cemetery in Paris to collapse. One of the walls collapsed and subsequently spilling rotting corpses into a neighboring property.
Oh,
I call that a bad day.
That's a bad day.
That is such a bad day. Can you imagine that happening?
Can you imagine walking onto your back porch to drink your morning coffee and there's a bunch of dead people back there?
I mean, seriously.
And be like,
The
where
smell.
did these come from? Oh.
Oh God, it would be awful, awful, awful.
Mm-mm.
So it wasn't until this happened that the city officials were like, you know what? Maybe we should do something about this.
My God.
Although I did read that whoever was king at the time, like before this, like earlier in 1700, maybe like mid 1700s, they were trying to be like, hey, maybe we should do something about the cemeteries. And the priests were like, no, we can't touch the buried, type of thing.
Ew.
So then the next king was like, psst, hey, maybe we should do something about these bodies.
Who was it?
I don't remember. I read it and now I forgot it.
Is it one of the Louis?
You know, it probably was. I think you're right there. So after the bodies spilled into the neighboring property, they were like, yeah, let's move these bodies. So they decided to move the bodies to an underground location, which was at the time out of city limits. So the location was the former Tomb Ossuary quarries. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. Under the plain of Montreuil, I think is how you say it. So this site had been in operation since the 15th century, but had been abandoned years before. So they officially started moving bodies in 1785. So this was 5 years after.
Wait, 5 years after those bodies spilled in that poor person's yard?
Yes.
Because did they at least take the bodies out of that person's yard?
I hope so, but I didn't find any documentation showing that.
They're probably just assholes and like, no, that's your problem now. Like,
yeah, well, sorry, we gotta excavate this other place.
Can't touch the dead.
Right, exactly.
God.
So they had to. It took a while to excavate, apparently, this other place.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah. So they officially started moving bodies in 1785, and they started with the largest cemetery, the one that, you know, the wall broke.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully. So this cemetery had closed in 1780, you know, when the wall collapsed, but it had been being used for close to 10 centuries. This is
Yeah,
how,
you're gonna have some overflow there.
yeah, a lot of overflow. So this is
Jesus.
why it was so much overflowing. So because the
Oh.
cemetery was so extensive and they were only actually able to transfer the bodies at night because they didn't want to like alarm the people during the day. So because it's so big and they only could do it at night, they had this continued for 2 years just with this cemetery.
Goodness.
So on April 7th, 1786, the new site was consecrated as Paris Municipal Ossuary. It later took on the name Catacombs from people's fascination with the Roman catacombs. So they continued moving bodies from other cemeteries throughout the 1800s, and lastly, during the reconfiguration of Paris in 1860. So I read that in, I don't remember what year it was, but it had halted. There was a couple times that it actually halted transferring the bodies. One of them was because of the French Revolution. Since that was going on, they were like, yeah, we don't really care to move the bodies right now because they're trying to have a revolution.
Priorities.
Exactly. So, but then it would continue. And then the last bodies that were moved were 1859 and 1860. And then that's when Paris was reconfigured. So then it's actually within Paris city limits.
Okay.
So the bones were originally just piled everywhere. No rhyme or reason. They just kind of, here's this wheelbarrow, we're going to empty it in here. That's kind of it.
Oh.
Yeah. So the catacombs were rearranged to how you see them today by Heracart de Thury in the early 1800s. So once it was all said and done, there are over 6 million skeletons housed in the catacombs. Wow. That's just, I can't even imagine.
You can't even wrap your head around it.
No.
You just can't.
That's
crazy.
crazy. 6 million. Yeah. Yeah. So they were officially open to the public actually pretty early on, in 1809. Mm-hmm. And now you can go there on either guided tours or solo tours. But no matter what, you do have to book an appointment. You can't just go, show up, and walk in. Obviously, it costs, but in total, there are around 186 miles worth of catacombs. I'm telling you, tunnels in the catacombs, 186 miles.
I think you'll get your 10,000 steps in.
You know, I think you will. Yeah. However, you won't because it's not all open to the public.
Damn it.
Yeah, only like a mile. Like just under a mile is open to the public.
So who do I gotta be to get in the rest of it?
No kidding. I have no idea because I would love to walk all 186 miles of it.
I'm assuming it's just people that are hired to take care of it, maybe.
So it's a total of 20 meters or 65-ish feet deep, the equivalent of 5 stories, like a 5-story building. There are a total of 243 steps, 131 to go down, and 112 to go back up. So
do they have an elevator?
I don't think they do. I think it's, you gotta do the steps.
Damn it.
I'm not sure though. I could be wrong, but that was the facts that the website had spelled out. So I also read that Napoleon kind of made this into the tourist attraction that it is, because he had gone down there with somebody important and like a group of ladies kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then there was some other important people that have visited, but I also read that people would sneak down there and hold parties illegally. There was one band that snuck down there illegally and held a party for like up to 100 people. and they played like the funeral march and stuff like that.
Oh
I know.
no.
I know.
Okay, this
I know.
bear with me because this is gonna sound kind of fucked up. How freaking sick would that party be?
Seriously.
I know.
I also read there was a magazine that I have that had said that people would sneak camera equipment down there as well
Oh
and
yeah.
do like photo shoots in there, and like some people would pose nude with the skeletons, and that would be crazy.
Okay,
That would be
that's
that's
wow.
kind of, yeah,
In the name of art, that is really bold.
really bold.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that's kind of all the information I have on the Paris Catacombs.
That's
And
crazy.
obviously, since the Paris Catacombs, and like I said, only about a mile is open to the public, which I didn't realize that. I kind of thought that it was
Yeah,
all open to the public.
Well, first of all, I didn't know it was that extensive. That's a lot. That's
Huge.
so much.
Well, I mean, it's 6 million people.
I mean, yeah, so you got to have some room
So
for
you
them.
got to have a lot of room.
Yeah, you got to have a lot of room.
Also, Red, because I think the theme of this is people suck. People would steal skulls, an entire skull from.
It's not a gift shop.
I'm sure they have a gift shop. Where you're walking underground is not it.
Yeah.
A gift shop is where you pay to get something, but you know. So basically, what would happen then is they would notice a skull has been stolen, and I don't know if they just take a skull from another part that people aren't allowed in and replace the skull. Yeah.
That's so shitty.
I know. So here's my pictures that I have. And again, because this one is one of the big ones.
I'm sorry, but if you took a trip to Paris and then came home and was like, Payton, look at my bone. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Where'd you get it? The catacombs. I'd punch you in the damn face.
I know. I would expect you to. So since this is a popular one, this is another one that I highly recommend looking up pictures because there's a ton of them. I just selected 4. So this is one of them. So this one shows kind of like a column, I guess you could call it, underground, where it's consisted of like a row of skulls and then vertebrae.
Okay. Because I was like, wait, which bone is that?
Yeah, it's vertebrae.
Okay.
A bunch of vertebrae. I'm going to assume all lumbar vertebrae because they're pretty large.
And they're big, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the walls are just fully lined.
Yeah.
With that kind of look, actually.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, and there's this one. That's pretty cool looking. That's those are femurs, Payton. Those are definitely femurs.
So are the other ones.
So yeah, a bunch of skulls, femurs, and then got this one here.
There was one bone in there that was lighter color. I think that was new.
Maybe. So you can see even too that some of the skulls are cracked. I'm going to assume that happened with
because they're
very haphazardly throwing them in piles.
That and the moving.
Yeah.
Moving the bodies probably a few times, more than a few times.
Yep.
And from being so old now.
And last picture got just seriously just lined with skulls.
So I would love to visit this, but my claustrophobia has gotten so bad that I think I would die. So if I were to die in the catacombs, your duty is to leave me there.
Okay.
You have to. I want to be a part of this.
That's fine.
God, that's cool as hell.
Yeah. So that's what I got on the Paris Catacombs.
It's pretty sick.
Yeah. And you know, I was thinking, I'm like, while I would love to do a guided tour, I think I'm really into the guided tours because I love to hear a little bit more information about stuff.
Right.
I think I would want to walk through by myself
Well, that's kind of
because it gives me more time.
you're a
You know,
reader. You're a reader.
I'm a reader. I
Yeah.
really love to read things, everything that's up. I love to like stand and like examine stuff.
Oh yeah,
Payton and my husband hate me when we go through museums because they leave me all the time.
the last time that we went through a museum, it was me, you, and Billy, and Ryan. For anyone that doesn't know,
Yeah.
her husband. Um, the last time that we went into a museum, we went into the Museum of Death, which is right here on
Which
Hollywood.
is so cool.
So cool. It's right
Not
here.
for the faint of heart though.
Yeah,
at
it's
all.
right here. It's right here in Los Angeles where I live. It's actually on Hollywood Boulevard. And the first room, I think the first two rooms is all serial killers.
Mostly the first room is all about like very notorious serial killers and well-known ones. I wanted to read everything.
Oh yeah, there was a lot about John Wayne Gacy, and he was in his like Pogo the Clown costume.
We are absolutely going to cover him.
Oh, absolutely. Because hello, he's from our hometown state.
Yeah.
So we have to. And he lived in Springfield, Illinois for a time. So because I think he's originally from Chicago.
Yeah, I think that's where everything happened. So,
but yeah, you were in the first room for so long that me and Billy left you.
They leave me all the time when it comes to museums because I sit and read.
Plus, I've already been there like a few times.
I'd go again. I would go again in a heartbeat.
I'm a regular patron of the Museum of Death.
Like I said, I would go there again in a heartbeat because I mean, there was some stuff I didn't read, and especially doing this now, I'd get so much more information. I mean, oh my gosh, it was amazing.
It's so okay. I will say it's not for the faint of heart.
Not at all. There were some people that went back to where you start because like they couldn't handle it.
Yeah, if you got a weak stomach, don't go.
Or a weak constitution.
That too.
So anyway, we'll definitely share these pictures that I showed again. If you're just listening and didn't watch this on YouTube in real time, we will share this on Facebook and Instagram, all the pictures. I'll kind of number them too. That way you can kind of know what I was talking about when I was saying picture number 1, 2. So we'll share those the day that this comes out.
Yes. And I'll share them on Instagram as well.
Yes. So speaking of Facebook and Instagram, you can follow us on Facebook at 2K Away.
And you can follow us on Instagram at 2K Away Podcast. I thought about making a Twitter, and then I decided against it. Maybe in the future. I don't know.
Maybe, eventually.
Yeah.
But we do have a YouTube page. You can follow and subscribe to that. It is 2K Away Podcast.
Yes.
I
made it, and I don't even know whatever. But yeah, so I guess thank you. That was fun. That was
super fun.
That was super fun.
Yeah. And I love that because like I said, I couldn't make one episode out of just one of those things. So grouping them together like that, I think was super fun to listen to.
Well, especially I think that this gives us like a little taste of other places in the world and what they do with their dead.
Yeah.
And like the ones in the Philippines, like what they do with their elderly, and they have to risk their lives to get them on the cliff. So kudos to them. Yeah.
They do.
That's
so
craziness.
And thank you to everybody who is listening because we never thought that this would take off like it did. So thank you so much.
Thus far. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And continue following us, and I think we're gonna try and continue this as long as we can because this is a lot of fun. I really love doing this. Yeah.
Yes. Because I like to research creepy things. So
yeah, I like creepy stuff. Give me all the creepy stuff.
Yes.
But yes.
So we'll see you next week then. We'll try to maybe give you an idea leading up to it. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, give you a little taste, make you guess.
Yeah, leave you in suspense.
All right, sounds good. All right, so we will see you next week.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.